a smart car, or anything in between. I'm Spencer Callahan. I'd like to help.
Spencer Callahan is the one to see. Call 387-2323.
LA 21-12671. Offices in Baton Rouge.
WNXX, Jackson, KNXX, Donaldsonville, and WDGL HD2 Baton Rouge. This hour brought to you by Spencer Callahan Injury Lawyers. LA 21-12681. Offices in Baton Rouge. Now, Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week is off to a good start. Got Casey Gaines back in the saddle. Jacob Beck back there on the ones and twos as well. Glad you're hanging out with us on this Tuesday. We're going to take a look at a couple of schools in the SEC today. Jason Caldwell covers Auburn from inside the Auburn Tigers. Hugh Freeze has named his starting quarterback for year one of the Freeze era on the Plains. Kind of get a look at what's going on over at Auburn with Jason Caldwell. Glenn West always with us on Tuesdays. He'll be with us at 1:30. Brian Kelly going to meet with the media after practice tonight as the gang started school yesterday and back in action for the first time at practice today after a day off. Nick Delatorre. Last time I spoke to Nick Delatorre, I was seated in the Ameristar Casino. I had no voice at all up there in Council Bluffs, Iowa. And we were talking about Game 3 of the National Championship Series. Nick covers the Florida Gators. We're going to talk some football with Nick coming up at 2 o'clock, top of hour number 2. We'll hear from LSU head baseball coach Jay Johnson. A little bit of sound in hour 2 at 2:15, and then Sharif Ishaq in his normal spot at 2:30. So a lot of guests, 4 of them today, but plenty to get to over the next 2 hours. So thanks for strapping in and hanging out with us. I wanted to spend the first segment today going over the Saints roster as it stands entering the final week of a preseason game. Then you've got a couple of weeks to get ready for the season opener. Still time for folks to make an impact. Unfortunately, for a lot of guys, not an opportunity for joint practices this week with the Texans. Both teams decided not to do that, but they will play a preseason game coming up this weekend, and then you'll kind of get your roster cuts down to your 53 in your practice squad, and you'll push off the dock into the regular season. And I've got some thoughts, and I'll get Sharif's in hour number 2 on where the roster kind of stands right now. And you start at quarterback, and I think all 3 are going to make the 53. After watching what we saw in San Francisco last year and understanding the nature of that position, I think having Derek Carr, Jameis Winston, and Jake Haener all make the team is a plus. Is Haener ready to get out there and make a lot of plays in the regular season? I have my doubts. He had a nice start to camp. He's had a couple of nice moments in the preseason, but you've got a league average quarterback by my eyes in Derek Carr and what I would call an above average backup in Jameis Winston, who I wouldn't want to give the keys to my franchise to, but I think can come in there and function the offense should Carr be unavailable. So I think all 3 of those guys absolutely make the team. And I say that with an understanding. I mean, you would say, oh, well, that's obvious. The Saints are a little bit different there. They're unique in the fact that they've got a guy in Taysom Hill who can play quarterback but isn't really a quarterback. That doesn't really exist anywhere else in the league. I'd rather leave him doing other stuff and bring the 3 quarterbacks along for the ride. Running back's a little bit of a tenuous spot for the Saints at this point, but you know that Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller are ready to roll. Darrell Williams is in the fold right now, and I think Ellis Merriweather may make this team. I think he's done a really nice job by the media's account in practices. I liked what I saw in the preseason games, so I think he's got a real chance. Kirk Merritt, the injury is really disappointing for him because there was an opening there. You had injuries. You've got the suspension of Alvin Kamara. You've got a chance to make this team transitioning from wide receiver to running back, but he gets hurt, not able to be out there. Could he make the practice squad? Absolutely. I think the Saints like what he brings to them, and he's been there before. But when Alvin Kamara comes back, all these numbers kind of shake up just a little bit. So at this point, I think all those guys are ticketed for New Orleans, depending on if they're on the 53 or demoted to the practice squad. We know that Adam Prentice is a guy that the Saints value a lot at the fullback spot. Not a ton to add there. He gives you a little bit of a hammer there, but it's certainly a special teams guy that can help you there. At tight end, this is where I have my doubts, quite honestly, at tight end. Juwan Johnson is emerging into a real threat in the receiving game. It really is a real threat in the receiving game. Foster Moreau is a proven commodity. He's your more physical option at that spot. He gives you some size. You're not predictable by personnel with him. He can go out there and make catches and has in his career. And then you know what you have in Taysom Hill, and you're going to qualify him as a tight end here, whatever, that's fine. He also gives you that running threat as a specialty quarterback and can line up and be a little bit physical. He's Taysom Hill. He plays the Taysom Hill position. I'm not ready to give Jimmy Graham a roster spot. I hope he's healthy, and I have no idea what actually happened in Los Angeles. And for the purposes of this discussion, we'll just move on from a football sense because they'll certainly have more information than I will. Seizure, medical episode, wandering traffic, arrested. That's an odd story that we'll need some more detail on in time. But from a football perspective, yes, he's a little taller than Foster Moreau. Yeah, he's a lot taller than Juwan Johnson. Yes, he's one of the great players in terms of production in the history of the franchise. Do I need his skill set on this team? At 37, probably not to me. There are other places I might want to use that roster spot. I love what Juwan Johnson gives you in the pass game. Foster Moreau can help you in the passing game. Taysom Hill can help you a little bit in the passing game. I don't need a fourth tight end in a league that restricts your roster so greatly. I just haven't seen enough. And this episode over the weekend certainly doesn't help. Again, you hope he's healthy, but I'm not ready to go there. Out at wide receiver, Olave, Thomas, Shaheed are certainly locks. I think they're going to hold on to A.T. Perry as a contributor, not like a stash on the practice field. I think he plays. I'm not as sure about Traquan Smith. And I said this last week, and I continue to feel this way. Traquan Smith is essentially on this team to block on the outside. I mean, he averages like 26 yards a game for his 5-year career. He makes about 26 catches a year. Last year, he made 19 catches in 15 games. 1 touchdown. They got more talent than Traquan Smith on this roster. A.T. Perry, Lynn Bowden to return kicks. I think Traquan Smith and Keith Kirkwood may be on the outside looking in. John Trey Kirkland may be the same. Maybe they put him on the practice squad. We'll see. Shaq Davis, Brian Edwards, Kawan Baker. They got a lot of guys that can play. But I think it's Olave. I think it's Thomas. I think it's Sheed. I think it's Perry. And then I think it's Bowden. Because I just don't value that much a wide receiver whose main job is to go block. I don't want to suggest that wide receivers don't have to block, and that's a stupid thing to have on your team. But I think Michael Thomas can block. I think Juwan Johnson can split out and block. I'm not going to ask Rashid Shaheed to go out there and level players, but I'm done with Traquan Smith after 5 years. Matt's been done for 4. I just don't necessarily think that that's a necessity on this team, and I think you can find another roster spot there. Offensive line, obviously Pennig, Ramczyk, Young on the outside. Inside, you got Hurst, you got McCoy, you got Ruiz, you got Pete, and I think Nick Saldiveri is a guy that they're gonna keep around, and I think it's potentially at the expense of Calvin Throckmorton. I talk about that entering the preseason game, and maybe you could practice squad Throckmorton and bring him up. That's not unfamiliar to him. But I think Saldiveri could be the game day guy at that spot. You invest a draft pick in him, a little younger player. I think that works. Go to special teams. I'm okay with Lutz at this point. I think he's made the team. And I was listening to Charlie's show a little bit earlier, and he was chatting with the guest, Chris Rothvoglu, and they were talking about whether or not potentially you could maybe trade Blake Grupe. Maybe you could trade Will Lutz. And they mentioned Sean Payton, who's got a Saints reunion going on in Denver. Does he want Will Lutz? We know Sean Payton and how he feels about kickers. Does he trust Lutz to come into Denver and be his guy? But I think Gillikin, Lutz, your long snapper, Zach Wood, I think that's pretty much set in stone. You get to the defense, you start at the end. Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, those are your starters. I'm mildly encouraged by what Peyton Turner did coming off the edge against the second-team offensive line on Sunday. Tano Passanio, you know what you've got in him. I think Foskey is, to me, ticketed for a healthy scratch, practice squad type stuff. I haven't heard really anything positive about Foskey in terms of his work. And none of it's dismissive of his potential. You certainly liked that coming out of Notre Dame, and that still exists. But I'm not dying to have him active on Sunday if I don't think he can help at all. And that may open the door for Nico Lalos after we saw that performance on Sunday. Now, it's against reserves, so it shouldn't be measured the same as getting it done in November, but maybe that's a guy that they trust to go out there and play right now a little bit more than they would with Foskey. A defensive tackle, you know, Shepard and Saunders are the guys you signed. Brzez's going to be out there, and Roach has apparently had a brilliant camp by a couple of accounts, Luke Johnson on Thursdays being one. The question is, what do you want to do as far as practice squad goes there? Is Jack Heflin, Prisamili, are those guys you want to keep around? Maybe Jerron Cage? It kind of depends. I think that Brzee and Roach kind of being your second team there is potentially enough. Linebacker, I think, is where you've had the biggest move in the last 10 days because you brought in Jalen Smith. And he becomes your third linebacker to me immediately behind Demario Davis and Pete Werner. So what does that mean for Nephi Sewell, Ryan Connolly, DeMarco Jackson, Zach Bond, Anthony Orji, that group of players? What does it mean for them? And to me, I might rather have some of these guys active based on the age of Demario Davis, the injury history of Pete Werner, and the age of Jalen Smith, as opposed to keeping Jimmy Graham around. These are young players that potentially have real potential. You've got an aging Davis, a Smith that you've just signed. I'd like to keep Nephi Sewell around, Ryan Connolly, DeMarco Jackson, and Bond and Orji, maybe practice squad guys, but they're young, really young in Orji's case, and I'm going to prioritize that, the special teams aspect and the depth, even though the Saints generally only play two linebackers, over what potentially Jimmy Graham could give you. And then at safety, you got Tyron and Marcus May. What comes of Marcus May and his discipline, we'll see. JT Gray is a lock for the team because of what he can do on special teams, and he's been a contributor on defense at times. Smoke Monday, Jonathan Abram, Lonnie Johnson, Jordan Howden, Ugo Amadi. Matthew and May have played the most of those guys early. And you know that Roby's going to make the team and move up and down, and maybe Howden has taken kind of that dime spot that for a while P.J. Williams had taken on. But you've got some decisions to make on the back end there, and then you've got corner where Lattimore's just been sensational in camp. Adebo has just kind of climbed in front of Alontae Taylor. I mentioned Roby. And then you got probably some practice squad options, I think, there at safety. So big week for some guys toward the back end of the linebacker room, Connolly, Jackson, Bond, Orji. I think a big week for Jimmy Graham to show that he can come back and potentially be healthy. Maybe a big week for Calvin Throckmorton. Guys that are trying to make that active 53. The drama in terms of the depth chart is pretty well settled at this point. You've seen the group joint practices. You've seen a couple of preseason games. We understand who the Saints have coming back, and the roster was fairly set up. And when you bring in Jalen Smith and you bring in Darrell Williams, you kind of solidify some spots that needed depth. Now it's who's going to make the end of the roster. And they've got basically a couple weeks to get that figured out. So wanted to run through that here first off on a Tuesday. Take a time out. When we come back, excited to talk a little Auburn football with our guy Jason Caldwell of Inside the Auburn Tigers. That is next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Storm season's here. There is activity down there in the Gulf. Don't let electricity be your main issue when a hurricane comes through. Boudreaux's Electric can help you out with that. They are family-owned and operated by Neil and Melissa Boudreaux. That's the way it's been for 40 years. They're a certified Generac dealer, and they're actually a premier Generac do. They're in the top 3% in the country in terms of Generac generators. Not every house needs the same generator. You just don't just go grab one. Boudreaux's Electric will come to your home, and they will customize a generator for you based on the size of your home, based on what you want it to power. Maybe you just want the fridge and freezer. Maybe you need that AC. Maybe you want the entire house rocking and rolling when a storm comes through. Maybe it's in the afternoon or it's a hurricane. And you need that if you're going to be there. It's uncomfortable around here when the power goes out. But if you leave, don't you want your freezer and fridge to operate? Don't you want to come back to a cool home and not one that's a million degrees? Boudreaux's Electric can help you with that. And all of their generators come with a free 10-year warranty. A free 10-year warranty. Call them at the same number they've had for 40 years. 985-397-1562. That is 985-397-1562. Boudreaux's Electric.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $12,000 off MSRP on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks, all with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Was a humid day, barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade. Time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, some kind of hold on me. Like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps are held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Bayou Ford has $8,000 off MSRP, plus 1.9% financing on new 23 Ford F-150 XLT trucks, along with Bayou Ford's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Santa Griff, join us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from Roca Pizzeria on Government Street. Scott Rabelais is with us. Wes Reynolds from Beeson and professional handicapper Randy McKay. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Whenever we want to talk Auburn, we know where to go. It's our guy Jason Caldwell, officially part of the 247 Sports Network. Better than 2 decades covering the Tigers on the Plains. He joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Jason, thanks for the time. How are you, man?
I'm good, Hunt. How about you?
Doing very well. Describe to me the mood in Auburn today as opposed to 12 months ago entering a season under the previous staff?
Yeah, much different mood 12 months ago, and I think especially much different than even October. I tell people that it's not night and day; it's day and black hole difference in the program right now, and it's all the way through. But it starts at the top: new president, new athletic director, football coach, all in alignment, same page. It is just to say it's a new day would be an understatement.
Well, let's work through that dynamic briefly. Obviously, things were not aligned in any way, shape, or form at this point last year. What dominoes had to fall to make sure that Hugh Freeze and those above him were on the same page?
Yeah, obviously you get a new president in, and that was kind of the first scenario. But changing athletic director, bringing in John Cohen, and immediately a change in the football coach, knowing that, hey, this is not going to work. And it was pretty obvious it wasn't going to work. And so you had to kind of get guys that were, hey, what do we need? What is Auburn looking for? Okay, we're all on the same page. Okay, now let's go forward. And so that had to happen. And, you had to have a coach that understood what it takes to win in the Southeastern Conference. And that means good, players, recruiting, all those things. I mean, there's no secret. And so that was the first step, is going, okay, how do we put the right pieces in place to be successful?
We're not so much talking about LSU's Texas Bowl where they had 38 scholarship players now that we're 2 years past it, but I think Auburn's kind of in a similar place, so I want to go back to that spot. When Brian Kelly came in, I don't know that there was necessarily a strength of the roster or any sort of foundation. He kind of had to put it all together via duct tape in the transfer portal. Was there any sort of foundation or strength in any position or a couple of players to lean on that Hugh Freeze had, or was it kind of, we got to overhaul this entire thing?
Yeah, probably a secondary group was probably, you go, okay, that's a group that's in pretty good shape. When you think about coming back, you've got DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchett back at corner. You got Keontae Scott back at safety, and Jalen Simpson and Zion Puckett back at the safeties, and Keontae is at the nickel. So, I mean, you got 5 starters back in the secondary. And so you go, that's probably a strength of this. But then you start going through this roster. I mean, they have 10 new offensive linemen since the end of the year last year. They only have 6. They only had 6 returning. We lost one of those in camp. So they have 5. They have 5 returning offensive linemen from last year, 10 new. And probably when you think about starters for opening day, 4 of the 5 are going to be guys that were newcomers to this roster from the transfer portal, one junior college potentially. If you think about quarterback, obviously we know Peyton Thorne. I would say that tight end, they'll play a couple of tight ends at times, but Rivaldo Fairweather is going to be a guy that's going to start and play a bunch. Shane Hooks is a wide receiver. A couple other transfer wide receivers. Probably 6 or 7 guys on the front 6 or 7 on defense are going to be new. There could potentially be 11 or 12 starters that were not on this roster at this time last year.
Well, one of those is Peyton Thorne. You mentioned him there. Quarterback transfers in from the Big Ten up at Michigan State. What did he do to win that job?
Yeah, I think he's probably been the steadiest of the guys for a team that's run the ball pretty well. He's got experience. He started 26 games, school record for touchdown passes, and played really well a couple of years ago when Kenneth Walker was there and they were able to run the football. And so I think for them, they're looking at, hey, this is a team that feel like, okay, maybe they'll run the football with the newcomers up front on that offensive line. Darquez Hunter back, Damari Alston. You had Brian Battie in at running back as well, and then true freshman Jeremiah Cobbin. They got some depth at the running back position. And so you look at Peyton Thorne, he's a guy that's played, has been through it, and they played a similar style when you think about what they've done in Michigan State, kind of that RPO game and some of the things they've done. And felt like, hey, this is fairly close. The guy with the most experience in this system is going to be a guy they're going to lean to. Now you give them a chance to start to build some camaraderie with the wide receivers and some of those guys, and that's always important as you get ready for a season.
Is there a role for Robbie Ashford on this team?
Yeah, no, there's no question. They were like, okay, how would he respond? And he responded by, as Hugh Freeze said, his best 3 practices of the preseason were after that when they named Peyton Thorne. He's responded well. and we know what he can bring to the table in terms of athleticism. But he's a guy that's throwing the ball better. I think Robbie Ashford is a guy that is going to have a role, and Hugh Freeze has said as much. And I don't think it's just going to be, one play on 3rd and short. I think they're going to have maybe a series for him, some things they do where it's maybe look a little different on offense. And so I do think he's going to be involved and have something to say about this team. And hey, I'm not ruling out that he may look up here and just a little time, and he may be pushing. I think he's pushing a little bit more now. He may push even more into the season. And Hugh Freeze has said, look, no matter who the starter is in week 1, they got to continue to play well and, keep earning that spot. And I think there's going to be competition.
I was surprised to hear Hugh Freeze say at media days that he's not going to call plays. Obviously, he wasn't paying much attention back in the spring. But I know what a Hugh Freeze offense looks like at Ole Miss, and I was expecting to see the same thing at Auburn. With Philip Montgomery being the offensive coordinator, is it going to look like what we saw back at Ole Miss, or is this a different look because the head coach is a little bit more hands-off?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very similar. I think they pretty much do things pretty similarly. When you think back to Baylor with Philip Montgomery, and you think about RG3 and then Bryce Petty and some of those teams. Those are teams that ran the football but spread the field and try to create some mismatch situations, use some tempo. I think it's going to be similar. I think Hugh Freeze will be involved, especially probably in situational. My would guess would be red zone. He'll go, I'm going to focus on red zone, do some of those things. He'll have the ability, as a head coach should, to, hey, no, I like this in this situation. But I think he brought in a guy he trusts to go run the offense. And I think he's probably, over the last few years, learned how much difference there is in having to do these things at an SEC level, all the things that are required of a head coach. And, boy, it's tough when you start thinking about doing all that, game planning, being a play caller. If you're going to be a play caller, you need to be in every aspect, and it's hard to do that as a head coach. So I think for him, it's probably going to be situational stuff.
I look at the schedule for Auburn this year. I see UMass to start, a trip out to Cal, which I think that Auburn should handle, then a home game with Samford, and then I go, whoa, at A&M, Georgia, bye, at LSU, Ole Miss. That's the meat of the schedule right there before you get to Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, New Mexico State, and then the Iron Bowl. What is the expectation? What are the thoughts on what Auburn could accomplish this year in year 1 under Hugh Freeze?
Yeah, you look at the schedule, and you see people say it's one of the toughest in the country, and this is about as easy as it gets for Auburn. I mean, we'll see what happens with these schedules changing, here in the coming years. But when you play Georgia and Alabama and LSU and Texas A&M and all, it's just hard. You expect that, and so I think for this team, can you stay healthy? That's going to be the first order of business because there's not a ton of depth, and so can you stay healthy? And can they run the football? I think if they can run the football, then it's going to help out, the defense. Where right now, I think they're still searching for some difference makers up front on that defensive front. But if you can run the football, then you might can help some of those things. So I think if you look up at this team can be successful running the football, and start to churn some things out that way, then you might be able to string some things together. I don't think this is a team like we've seen in the past that you start going, oh, Auburn, they win 3 games, and the next year they went undefeated, or they went to the national championship game. I don't know that this team has that because of 42 new players that they had to go get. But I think it's a team that can be. I'll say this: I did not think they had a chance to be competitive. If you'd asked me in October, now I think they've given themselves a chance to be competitive and to make a little noise if things fall right.
Covering Auburn for 24/7 Sports, he is Jason Caldwell. Jason, we appreciate it. We'll talk down the road.
Yeah, thanks, Hunt.
Always enjoy chatting with Jason. He mentions it brings up a decent point. He says this is about as easy as it gets for Auburn's schedule. And you heard me roll through that middle of the schedule starting September 23rd. It's at A&M, Georgia, at LSU, Ole Miss. And then you still got Bama down the line. You're like, well, how could that be as easy as it gets? Well, their non-conference Power 5 is Cal, and I can't name one player who's played for Cal in the last 5 years. But I'm imagining they're not awesome. And then your crossover is at Vanderbilt, which I've said many times are the greatest 2 words in SEC football scheduling. At Vanderbilt, you get a road game, and you're going to win the game. So that is about as easy as it gets. Yeah, you got to go to LSU. Yeah, you got to go to Arkansas. But Georgia comes to Auburn. Alabama comes to Auburn. Ole Miss and State come to Auburn. As SEC schedule goes, and if you're Auburn, you have to play Georgia every year. That's about as easy as it gets. I believe in Hugh Freeze as a football coach. I think that he will have his team prepared. I think they're probably down on talent, but they've patched holes with older players from the portal, like LSU did a lot of last year, especially in the secondary, some on the offensive line, especially at quarterback. That's kind of what they're trying to do, and they've handed the keys to Peyton Thorne, who was a good passer when he had the nation's leading rusher in Kenneth Walker. We'll see if they can get that done again. I'm not super bullish on Auburn this year, but I think Hugh Freeze in a 5-year window will win a lot of football games. That's my thought. All right, let's take a time out and get back to Glenn West. That's next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is that website. 10% off. Been telling you for a couple of weeks. 10% off if you go to One Bath and Closets and get a closet renovation or remodel and a bathroom renovation remodel. If you combo the two, 10% off to the listeners of the Hunt Palmer Show. If your closet's just cluttered and it's a mess, you don't have room for things, you got suitcases down there, there's shoes all over the place, let David Duvall and his team come in and simplify your life. They can do a lot of different things in a closet. They can create new spaces with cubbies and shelves and drawers and racks. Maybe they can just use your space a little bit more effectively. You won't know unless you get that free consultation with David Duvall and his crew. They'll come in, they're going to give you a questionnaire, they'll understand what you have and what your needs are, what your preferences are. They'll customize a closet for you. Check out the reviews at OneBathAndClosets.com. Check out the pictures of their great work at OneBathAndClosets.com and have David Duvall and his team come in and change the way your home looks and operates. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. OneBathAndClosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the JimsFirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the JimsFirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Scooncha fall in the air. Fall is right around the corner, which means fall fishing is, which means it's time for you to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service in a bunch of different ways. You want a custom stair job, you can have a ton of fun out there on the water, they can do that. What about a spot lock trolling motor so you stay right where you need to in casting lines, or sonar that's let you see the fish under the water before you cast? All of your maintenance needs as well. For 38 years they've been at it and will continue to do so. The Sherman family of front to back boat service.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to Six Rings Baseball.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Saints are back on the practice field. We'll get you an update on the Who-Dats, and we'll continue our SEC check-ins. Mississippi State is up next. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Back out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline we go. I got Glenn West with Go 24/7. Joins us each and every Tuesday. Glenn, how are you?
I'm doing great, Hunt. How are you?
I'm good. What did you do for 2.5 hours between the time you walked into Tiger Stadium and they started scrimmaging on Saturday?
I was trying to plan out the rest of my day because I didn't think we were going to see much of a scrimmage, but we ended up seeing a good bit. I mean, 40, 45 plays. What did you do with your time?
I watched Jimmy watch horse races and bet on him at Saratoga. His first horse won, so it was quite thrilling down on our side of the press box. I also managed to sneak over from the press box to the stadium club level and get some lemonade because they didn't have any working drinks, but they were letting the former football players across the way have beverages, so I snuck over there and stole some lemonade.
Yeah, I think I'll call out Moscona here. He actually used some of the bathroom sink water.
So did Cobble.
So that was his drink of choice.
It was there's 50 of us up there. They got no water and the fountains weren't working up there in the press box, so you had to do something. Cobble and Moscona are drinking out of the sink, and I was stealing lemonade. It is what it is. But they did scrimmage. We saw 40-plus plays. Anything stand out to you from the scrimmage on Saturday?
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, it's hard not to notice when a freshman running back like Caleb Jackson has the kind of day that he did. Obviously with the 25-yard touchdown run and then also the 75-yard catch and run for a touchdown, weaving in and out of traffic the whole way there. That was a really cool kind of moment. I think he was not somebody that I had initially pegged as having a huge role, at least from the start. But if you have a day like that and you're able to back it up, leading up to Florida State week, I mean, the way the running back room is right now with a couple of guys still trying to get back to full strength with their conditioning, I don't know how you can't at least draw up a few plays for him maybe and see if you can't break one loose. So Caleb Jackson's certainly a standout. I would say probably the other biggest kind of takeaway was them using Lance Hurd on the front lines with the first team. I think it was a really interesting move to kind of shift Emory Jones into guard and Lance Hurd at right tackle. That was a move that they made for a couple of the drills there during the practice, and I think it just kind of hints at LSU being a little, not only Hurd producing and starting to evolve as a player, but also LSU being a little bit more flexible with some of their pieces along the offensive line. And I think that's something that we saw a little bit of in spring with them not completely there with their rotations and whatnot. And a lot of guys getting some positional versatility, and now you're starting to see it pay off here in the fall with a move like that.
All right, if you're looking at those two freshmen, Caleb Jackson at running back and then Lance Hurd at right tackle, which is more likely to see significant early reps in the season?
Yeah, I would probably lean towards Lance Hurd still. I just think that everything that Brian Kelly has said this fall about kind of the running back room and the veterans kind of rising to the top, I still think that's probably the trend that LSU goes with to start the season. But I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Caleb Jackson's out there for several reps against the Seminoles. But I do tend to lean more towards Lance Hurd getting some consistent reps there, and if he performs well this early in the season, I think that could be a huge game changer for LSU. I've kind of been of the opinion really all off season that if Lance Hurd comes in and is that guy right away, the best version of that offensive line is with him at right tackle, Emory Jones sliding into guard, and then you got all those veterans with Turner and Frazier and certainly Dellinger to kind of wrap up those other two guard spots, and then Campbell at left tackle.
Feels like Malik Neighbors is probably going to lead the team in catches, I would imagine. If you agree with that. If you disagree, let me know. But who would be second in receptions for this team, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I probably lean towards Mason Taylor. I really think they're going to lean heavily into Mason again this year. I think he's poised for another really big season. But, yeah, I think Malik's going to be the guy that makes the engine drive with this offense. I think he leads the team in receptions, yards, touchdowns, all of it. I do think that he's in store for a really big monster year. And then I think that Mason Taylor's a guy that they're really going to try to unlock a lot more, and they're going to use a lot of those two tight end sets to create mismatches this year. And I think that Mason Taylor's going to be kind of on the positive end of a lot of those mismatches.
I absolutely agree. I think he will be second in the team in catches. Said that on Monday as one of my big takeaways from the scrimmage. Chatting with Glenn West, Go 24/7, all your team coverage as well as recruiting. Go 24/7, an awesome resource. We appreciate Glenn coming on every Tuesday. On defense, we saw Sage Ryan go out and play a little bit of cornerback before he went down with a shoulder injury. Where do you have the secondary at this point?
Yeah, I think they've settled into a rotation of about 6 guys that they feel really comfortable with in the secondary. Greg Brooks, Andre Sam, Major Burns, Zy Alexander, Sage Ryan, and Deuce Chestnut. And I think now with Brooks back and healthy, and the fact that they've found Sam as kind of that second safety that they really feel comfortable with, they can move Greg Brooks up to that nickel spot. That's where I think he will be able to make the most difference with this defense. He's got such a knack for playmaking and making plays on the ball. I think that's going to be a really good spot for Greg Brooks. But because of that, you're going to have to shift some other guys around, and I think that they started toying with the idea of putting Sage Ryan at that outside corner spot, and I thought he looked pretty good out there. He's a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical, and I think he's had a really nice fall camp overall. So I think it's really just about getting the veterans out there with experience, making sure those guys are well equipped with the positional versatility to be able to handle those duties. And I think that the best version of this secondary right now is getting those 6 guys out on the field. And we'll see just kind of who else can kind of maybe step into a role there. But I do like the move of Sage Ryan at the outside corner.
Do you think Mason Smith's healthy?
I don't know. I mean, there's been a couple nicks and bruises that he's gone through, and LSU's been super conservative with him, obviously coming off a serious injury. I just don't see how there's any way he doesn't play against Florida State or early in the season. If it's something minor, then I think he plays through it. But we don't have really an injury update yet on him. We're not sure how significant that ankle sprain is. They've been kind of holding him out from team activity work, at least up until Saturday with what we saw. But I do think that if it's nothing major with Mason, I don't think anything's really going to keep him off the field. I mean, the first week to 10 days, I thought he was the star of camp. I mean, he was really consistently getting into the backfield and looked like the guy that we were expecting to see last year. So if they can get him as close to 100% as possible by Florida State, I don't think there's any way that he doesn't play.
All right, next week at this time, I'll be asking you for a prediction on the LSU-Florida State game, so I guess it would be the time to ask you for a season prediction. I don't know if y'all put anything out on Go 24/7 yet, but where do you have this team in the regular season?
Yeah, not yet. I have this team probably in the 10-11 win range. I mean, I'm really bullish on this group. I really do think they're going to be a team that can contend if they stay healthy. I mean, I think the biggest question, at least entering the season right now, is the depth and what happens if a key player here or there goes down. How are they going to be able to respond to that? But if this starting group stays relatively healthy and they're able to play most of the season together, I don't see how there's any way they can't get to 10 wins. I think the Florida State game will be a real big indicator of just kind of how great of a year this can be in Baton Rouge. But I like the first 22. I like some of the pieces you're going to be rotating in with those 22. I think health, though, is going to be a big factor in how LSU does this year, whether it's 10-2 or whether it's 8-4. I think that's going to be the big difference maker.
they got to 11, they'd be in the playoffs one way or another, so that'd be something. All right, Glenn, enjoy your last weekend here, and then we'll be full steam ahead for like 45 weeks. So,
yeah. Well, we'll go straight from football to basketball to baseball again. So it'll be a very back-to-back-to-back kind of season. But that's exactly what we sign up for here in Baton Rouge.
All right, Glenn. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
He is Glenn West of GOAT 24/7. He and Sonny do an awesome job, and he's been out of practice all late summer long. And certainly we'll talk LSU and Florida State next week with Glenn. All right, we'll take one more time out. When we come back to close out hour number 1, this is probably a story that T-Bob would get to before I do, but I'll deliver it. I'll deliver it one way or another. That's next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, and they include spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/1045ESPN and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and present in Louisiana. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued, non-withdrawable bonus bet that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.com/FanDuel. If you're someone who has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-877-770-STOP.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Ford has $8,000 off MSRP, plus 1.9% financing on new 23 Ford F-150 XLT trucks, along with Bayou Ford's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCORoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $12,000 off MSRP on new 23 Ram 1500 trucks, all with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared towards seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further.
Sandegriff, join us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from Roca Pizzeria on Government Street. Scott Rabelais is with us. Wes Reynolds from Beeson and professional handicapper Randy McKay. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
We'll get to some serious discussion with Nick Delatorre in about 8 minutes talking Florida football. Billy Napier's year 2, and maybe some news out of Salt Lake City regarding Cam Rising, the quarterback of Utah. The line moved towards Florida, potentially Cam Rising not available for that season opener. We'll chat with Nick Delatorre coming up here in 10 minutes. But I mentioned it coming into this segment that this maybe a story more fit for T-Bob than me, but I think the kids are still in school, not in the car, so we can chat about this briefly. New York Post has a story up that Holly Saunders, who was previously on the Golf Channel, Fox Sports, she's now dating Oscar De La Hoya, rather scandalous dresser these days, Holly, is going to be the commissioner of Exposed Sports. It's going to include Instagram and OnlyFans models participating in topless matches. The quote from Holly Saunders is, "Imagine your favorite Instagram babes going head-to-head in competition, sweaty and oiled up." And she put in a post where she's riding a stationary bike in a bra and a thong. It says, "And these girls who make most of their money on OnlyFans and OnlyFans type of sites, some of them are making hundreds of $1,000s a month making their content. We're going to put them head-to-head in competition." Look, the XFL has struggled a little bit. Kind of tough to find its traction. I don't know if anybody is a real true fan of any of these XFL teams. But these girls already have fans that are paying monthly to see them on the internet. And now they're just going to go play ping pong. And I'm imagining that more people are going to pay to watch this because there are very few certainties in entertaining. This is one of them. Males will watch women with little to no clothing on pretty routinely. And if they're playing ping pong, that's all the better. I don't know where this is going to be broadcast, probably on the internet. I don't know what the going rate's going to be for some sort of subscription or pay-per-view like boxing. I'm not sure. But they're showing some of the tennis uniforms, which don't cover a whole heck of a lot. They're talking about playing pickleball. Some of the uniforms for some of the other activities don't exactly hide a ton. So I'm imagining that Exposed Sports is probably going to generate some sort of following. There's seemingly an endless amount of guys who will sit right there by the computer and pump money into whatever. OnlyFans, I'm shocked at some of the numbers that come out about how much people are making on OnlyFans. Feet pictures and whatever else. People just love the stuff. And I think that Holly Saunders may be onto something here. Again, not necessarily the lane that we usually run in here at the Hunt Palmer Show, but we're finishing off hour number 1 here, and I saw this story and I went, good grief. Holly Saunders says, "Yes, I'm the Roger Goodell of the Exposed Sports League, just overseeing it, making sure the girls are having fun, they're safe." It's very different owning the league as opposed to someone starting it and me running it, just how the world views it. I want us all to come together, make money, get some great content, and have a good time. So, yeah, I'm the commissioner, and my league creative is also a woman, one of the greatest women photographers, I think, in the world. So if you want to check it out, at Exposed with just the letter X, Exposed_sports with a Z. They're really getting funky there. Exposed without an E, sports without an S at the end, a Z. Real edgy. And one of the videos is her playing chess. It's a sad commentary on society that a chess match is going to be watched, but it is what it is. So if you want to learn more, go to the New York Post and check it out. That's it for hour number 1 here. Busy hour number 1 here on the Hunt Palmer Show. I opened things up at the top of the show talking about the Saints 53-man roster as it starts to take shape. They don't have to make decisions right now, but we're moving in that direction with the majority of the preseason action and all of the joint practices in the rearview mirror. So if you want my thoughts on the Saints 53, you can go to YouTube right now and check the full show and go to the front of it, or you can check a little bit later. Hunt on Saints, our new YouTube channel where I've got all my Saints content. It'll be right there. It'll be about 12 minutes, easy to digest. And if you subscribe to the channel, Hunt on Saints, it'll go right into your feed when you open up YouTube. So we appreciate that if you would. Jason Caldwell from 24/7 Sports joined us to talk about the Auburn Tigers in year one under Hugh Freeze. He thinks that Peyton Thorne obviously is the starter, but that Robbie Ashford will have a role in that team, and they're probably in a much better spot than they were this time last year as the entire administration crumbled around Brian Harsin. So Auburn talk at 1:15. Then Glenn West of Go 24/7 Sports. So this is at 1:30. You can catch all of hour number one on demand, 1045ESPN.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or, of course, on YouTube. Hour number two, very much looking forward to. Nick Delatorre will talk to us about the Florida Gators and Billy Napier coming up at 2 o'clock. I've got some sound from Jay Johnson at 2:15 from yesterday that I want to get to, and then Sharif Ishak going to be with us at 2:30 before we get to our Take It or Leave It. If you're looking for something to do this evening, Tuesday night, 8:30, Plucker Sports Trivia. Cubs play early tonight, 5:40 in Detroit, so you won't get to see me agonize much over the Cubs if you come out, but we'll still have gift cards you can win, delicious cold beers, and wonderful chicken wings. It's always a great time out there at the Pluckers on Nicholson at 8:30 Sports Trivia. We'll have you out of there by 10 o'clock. Very much looking forward to get out to Pluckers tonight. Come back with us after Sports Center. It's hour number two of the Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Scooncha fall in the air. Fall is right around the corner, which means fall fishing is, which means it's time for you to take your boat to the next level with front-to-back boat service in a bunch of different ways. You want a custom stair job, you can have a ton of fun out there on the water. They can do that. What about a spot lock trolling motor? So you stay right where you need to in casting lines. Or sonar that's let you see the fish under the water before you cast. All of your maintenance needs as well. For 38 years, they've been at it and will continue to do so. The Sherman family of front-to-back boat service.
Make this summer your backyard party year with Chris's Specialty Foods. Wings, burgers, brisket, steak, and boudin, plus great Cajun side dishes. We do all the prep, and you enjoy laughing with friends and family. Chris's Specialty Foods, Millerville, New Orleans, Prairieville, and Frisco.
Everybody loves Chris's authentic Cajun meat.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. From Brady to Baker, Baker Mayfield named Buccaneers starting quarterback. He was competing with Kyle Trask to succeed the retired Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. A first-round pick or multiple picks that are the equivalent of a first-rounder. That's what the Colts are seeking in a Jonathan Taylor trade, according to ESPN's Stephen Holder. The price for the all-pro running back, worth it for a championship contender. Canty and Carlin co-host Chris Canty.
I think it makes a world of difference in terms of a team that has title aspirations. It makes sense to go all in, to pay the cost, both in terms of the compensation to the Colts and the contract, if you think you can make a run at a Super Bowl over the next couple of years.
Chris Canty on Greeny. Commanders receiver Terry McLaurin's MRI showed no major damage to his injured right toe. He'll get treatment, is considered day-to-day. The team is optimistic about his availability for the September 10th season opener. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reports NBA's fining Sixers star James Harden $100,000 for his recent comments calling team president Daryl Morey a liar. Comments stem from Harden's belief that the Sixers wouldn't accommodate his trade request.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. They're close, convenient, and have the parts you need fast, along with excellent customer service from professional parts people you can trust. Stop by your local O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
Now, Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2 on a Tuesday, Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge, coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city. We'll go out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline and welcome our next guest, Nick Delatorre. Last time I chatted with Nick Delatorre, I was seated in a sports book in Council Bluffs, Iowa. I had no voice. We were a few hours from first pitch of Game 3, and he was still a single man. Lots changed since then. LSU won a national championship. Nick went back home and got married, and now we're talking a little bit of football. Nick, great to have you back. How are the wedding festivities?
The wedding was great. As any married man will probably tell you, the honeymoon's better than the wedding. But, yeah, it was a great 2 weeks around Europe. And I don't know if my wife would say that I was single. I guess in the eyes of the law and certainly the IRS, I was. So.
But now we move forward as a pair. Congratulations to y'all. And now football is right around the corner. Last time Florida had 3 straight losing seasons, 1953, 54, 55. 2 in the rearview mirror, now year 2 under Billy Napier. How much different does it feel today than it did prior to the opener of his first season last year?
Well, it felt better before you brought that up, I'm sure. Yeah, I think there's more optimism about the future and where the direction is. There's not as much optimism, I think, in the Gators' win-loss total. You know, everyone's favorite coach is a coach who's 0-0 for their career with that team. And then I'm sure Brian Kelly was vastly popular down there in Baton Rouge and probably is still based on how they started. Now we'll see. Florida fans will probably be rooting for LSU against Florida State in the opener, not too far from here in Orlando. But I think when you look at Billy Napier, Florida fans thought the rebuild was going to be like a home makeover on TV, and you take down some wallpaper, splash some paint. But really, it was extreme home makeover, and he brought in a bulldozer and took everything down to the foundation and the studs. And I think where you are right now with Florida, you've got some wood up and some walls, and the house is taking shape, but you can still see through it. So I think Florida fans are excited with the recruiting class, which is currently third overall on 3. But you look at the roster and 70 new players. It's not a complete rebuild, but a lot of the best players are guys that either came in from the transfer portal or have been part of Billy Napier's first 2 classes. And I think you'll see Florida go through some growing pains. So fans are cautiously optimistic heading into this season, which every year for, LSU and Florida is a difficult season in terms of who you're playing in the SEC.
Yeah, how much of that trepidation and maybe lack of big expectations is because of the roster, and how much is because the schedule's just so hard?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. It's interesting because Florida's schedule, I think, when you look at Utah, this is a big game. Florida doesn't travel really for out-of-conference games, and certainly not west of the Mississippi. But then you look at Utah, and Cam Rising is such a big part of their offense and what they do. Is he going to be ready to play? And if he is ready after tearing his ACL on January 1st, can he still be effective running the ball? He rushed for 91 yards against Florida last year. So I think Florida fans look at the injury to Utah, and then Joe Milton and Tennessee have to come to Florida for the 3rd game. It'll be the first road game. It's a night game. The Swamp, they'll start taking their medicine at 8 a.m., and that place should be crazy for Tennessee. And I think if Florida can rip off some wins early, the fans will grow confident. But then you look at the schedule after Georgia, or starting with Georgia, you get Georgia, Arkansas. It'll be a weird trip to Missouri, which I'm sure will be an 11 a.m. kickoff, November 18th. It'll be cold. You got to bring your own juice to that game. It's a game I've seen Florida lose, and then they finish with Florida State. So I think Florida needs to stack wins early and gain momentum, because if you start off with a 1-2 record with losses to Utah and Tennessee, I think you might get some fans who are like, what the heck is going on?
It's going to start at quarterback with Graham Mertz. They bring in from Wisconsin, serious veteran there, 4 years up there in Madison. What does he look like in camp?
I've got Florida fans have been on a roller coaster with Graham. It was like, who the heck is this guy? Wisconsin doesn't even know how to spell pass. Why is he coming down here? And then a freshman said, this is the best quarterback I've ever played with, and the fans were right back up and on the bus. And then you realize, hey, this is a freshman receiver from Miami. That's where I'm from, and we don't really produce great quarterbacks, especially at the high school ranks. So I think Florida fans have come up and down. The biggest thing for me with Graham has been I've seen so much improvement with him as he's grown comfortable with the playbook. And as much as I loved watching Anthony Richardson because he was so exciting, those check down passes, those passes that needed a little bit of touch to get over a linebacker, or needed to not be a 99-mile-an-hour fastball on a slant on 3rd and 3. I think Graham has a better understanding of when to take something off the ball. I also think he has a better understanding of who he is as a player. He's not Anthony Richardson. He's not Danny Warfel or Kyle Trask, and he's not going to be asked to be that. So I think Graham is mature enough to understand what his role is as a game manager. I know that's kind of a dirty word, but what his role is as a game manager and what he needs to do inside the offense to be successful. He's not going to be asked to be Anthony Richardson and rip off an 80-yard touchdown run on what otherwise would have been a busted play.
I think LSU fans in this market know Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne from their performance last year in Florida and their Louisiana roots. Plus, Ricky Pearsall's back, averaged 20 yards a catch on the outside at wide receiver. Who's another weapon or two that Florida's going to rely on because Mertz is going to need some help getting the ball out?
Well, you named the three.
Yep.
Those are the three guys. I don't know that there is a starter and a backup. I'm sure we'll get, a depth chart in game week, and one will be listed as a starter or backup. Maybe they'll throw an or in there. But to me, I don't even know if there's a 1A, 1B. I think Montrell and Trevor are kind of a two-headed attack, and I don't know that you'll have more than 20 carries between them when we get to, the end of November after the season. Ricky Pearsall is the only proven guy in the receiver room. I think one guy that I would single out is Caleb Douglas, who's from the Houston area. He was a quarterback until his junior year of high school, so he's kind of gotten used to the receiver position and certainly the speed of the SEC. He's a guy I think could break out for Florida. They have 3 really talented freshman receivers, I really like Andy Jean, Aiden Mizell, and Eugene Wilson. I think Eugene Wilson will be someone you see as punt return, kick return as well. And then a tight end named Arlis Boardingham. Really, Florida hasn't had a receiver like him since Kyle Pitts. Now, he's not Kyle Pitts. I think only Atlanta can stop Kyle Pitts. But he's not that, but he is a guy who is more of a pass-catching threat that Florida didn't have at that position last year.
If you want to draw the favor of the people here in South Louisiana, just make fun of the Falcons. That'll endear you very, very quickly to people around here.
I don't know if I'm making fun of them or just pointing out that you have one of the best players. I've covered Florida for 11 years, one of the best players I've ever seen, and you make him irrelevant. So, my goodness, what a job they're doing.
The entire NFC South is no bueno at this point, just not very good. So the schedule, obviously you mentioned the start there, and you know where they are in year 2. What does Billy Napier need to accomplish wins and losses wise to keep this thing rolling? The recruiting class, as you mentioned, looks great, but how do you keep that together and keep the fan base interested and engaged with the schedule this tough?
Yeah, it's interesting because Florida's class has 22 guys in it already. So there's not a lot of room to continue adding guys. So I don't know that you can build more momentum recruiting-wise, but certainly you need to hold on to those guys. And I'm sure there's some guys that are committed, have verbally committed, but if Florida goes 4-8, does that commitment stick? So I also think it's like the scales of justice. If you have a third-ranked class, do you get away going 5-7 or 6-6? If you go 5-6 or 5-7 or 4-8, do you need to have the top-ranked class? So I think there's kind of some scales of justice and weighing those things out, but you have to beat some of your rivals. It was Florida lost to all of their rivals: Kentucky, Tennessee, LSU, Georgia. I don't think you're beating Georgia. I won't pick Florida to win in Baton Rouge, but you need to beat Tennessee. You need to beat Florida State. I think going to Kentucky is really tough. Mark Stoops has coached circles around the last 2 head coaches at Florida with his defensive game plan, and that's going to be a really tough game for Florida on the road in Lexington. So I think Florida fans need a winning season, whether that's 6-6 in a bowl win or 7-5 in a bowl win to go 8-5. I think Florida fans need a winning season, but more than that, they need to beat a couple of their rivals last year after going 0 in 23 or in 22.
He's Nick Delatorre with On 3 Sports covering the Florida Gators. Nick, thanks so much, man.
Have a good one, guys.
I always enjoy our conversations with Nick. It's just odd to hear Florida in that light, saying, hey, they really need to go 7-5. It's just not the way that we anticipated. But look, that thing was ripped to the studs with Mullen, as he mentioned. The recruiting wasn't very good, and then the operation kind of fell apart and everybody left, and they just didn't have much there. And they duct taped it together with Anthony Richardson last year and found a way to be competitive more often than not, but didn't win enough games. And I'm not super high on Graham Mertz. I think the 3 guys that we mentioned with Johnson, Etienne, and Pearsall can make some plays, but I just don't know if I trust Graham Mertz to go handle Georgia's defense. I don't trust him to keep up with Tennessee offensively. I don't like him coming to Baton Rouge. That's just not – I don't think that's a great recipe. So we'll see what the future holds to Florida. And if they went 4-7 and Wardell Mack wanted to come off that commitment to Florida and stay home, I'd be okay with that, right? We'll talk some Saints coming up in 15 minutes. When we come back, Jay Johnson met with the media yesterday. He was doing so while we were on the air. Now we've got some sound, and I'll react to that next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Ochsner Health and MD Anderson Cancer Center have partnered to create Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center in southeastern Louisiana. This collaboration is going to provide patients in our region with access to cancer treatments that are among the most advanced in the nation. Ochsner is the first and only provider in Louisiana with a fully integrated cancer program that is based entirely on MD Anderson's practice standards and treatment plans. There are customized treatment plans based on the latest research, access to MD Anderson's protocols and practice standards, as well as their specialists and researchers. Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center is going to offer groundbreaking research and innovative therapies, and that expert care is going to be in 7 different locations across New Orleans, St. Tammany, and Baton Rouge, where we'll have the Ochsner Cancer Center right here in BR. Ochsner and MD Anderson are going to work together to certify additional sites moving forward into the future. If you'd like more information on Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center, visit ochsner.org, ochsner.org.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
The importance of doing this Fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance shops, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the Fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a Fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. And I think we're rocking and rolling.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Saints are back on the practice field. We'll get you an update on the Hoodats, and we'll continue our SEC check-ins. Mississippi State is up next. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Sharif Shack on the Saints in 12 minutes. Black and gold back from L.A. No joint practices with the Texans this week, but they will play the Texans this weekend in preseason game number 3. Last one before we get ready for another season of Saints football. We're a little ways from another season of LSU baseball. We'll be out there with some ball practice here in 6 or 8 weeks. But Jay Johnson did take the time on the first day of school yesterday to address the media, introduce his 2 new staff members, Nate Yeske, his pitching coach, and Terry Rooney, who he's brought in, former member of Coach Maneri's staff. Mainieri's first 2 years here in Baton Rouge. And I heard some quotes on that, and we kind of got to a little bit of that yesterday. But I wanted to mention some of the things that he had to say about the players that are coming in the nucleus of folks in the position player group as well as the pitching staff. So we'll start with what his thoughts are in terms of the blend of position players that he's bringing in with his 24 team.
I really like, what we've assembled. I think there's a blend of, there's a few guys that were key parts of that run on the position player side of it. Then there's a grouping that were also key parts of that team at a point during the season where it's their time now to take a step forward. And as I mentioned earlier, players make their biggest jump usually in our program between year one or year two of us arriving or them arriving on campus. And we have several candidates for that, and I'm excited to dig into that next phase with the Brady Neals, Paxton Klings, Jared Jones of the world on the position side of it.
That part right there, the last part, you will hear me say between now and the middle of February, so you're looking at 6 months, you will hear me say it 30 times. You're looking at this LSU baseball program, and you're looking at how they're going to put together a championship roster this coming season. The players who were young on last year's team, who either got hurt or lost their jobs, are going to have to merge and become studs. I don't know that you're going to get Hayden Travinski to become a guy that hits 22 home runs and hits 370. Like, maybe, but I don't think that's going to happen. You've got a chance with Brady Neal and Paxton Kling, with Jared Jones and Ethan Fry. Those guys have to become stars. We'll see about Zeb Ruddle or Mick Paul or some of the younger players who are coming in. We'll see, and I would include Gavin Guidry in that first group if he can man one of the battle stations in the middle infield. But when you're talking about replacing Dylan Cruz and Gavin Dugas and Braden Jobert, and you're looking at production and where you're going to get it from, it's probably not going to come from true freshmen. It's going to have to come from guys who, in year 2 in college baseball, you're a veteran. Like Paxton Kling and Jared Jones may only play 2 years of college baseball. If they have great years next year, they can move on. So that's where the firepower is going to have to come from. Yes, I believe that you've made a really nice couple of portal additions, that Mac Bingham's going to help you in the outfield, and he's going to be a really solid player for you. And Michael Braswell you bring in, and you feel like he's a good defender who's got some potential with the bat. But if you're looking towards the top and middle of that order, I'm looking at Kling. I'm looking at Jared Jones. Jared Jones needs to hit .312 with 21 home runs. Like he just does. Hopefully Brady Neal stays healthy. He did not in his first season. He did not this summer. And they're going to have to tweak some things with that bat. They've got until February to get it done. But he's going to have to emerge as an offensive threat. He had his moments last year. He took Hagen Smith deep to left field in a one-run game. One of the best left-handers in the conference. Maybe the best left-hander in the conference. Hit a big home run in the Tennessee series as well. But he was inconsistent, struck out a little bit. He's got to come aboard. Ethan Fry is not a guy that got a lot of opportunities. But he did get a lot of at-bats in the summer, and he's going to have to come back and really swing it in the fall and then find a position, whether it's right field or DH or whatever the case may be. You know you can lean on Tommy White, and that's great. And I think Travinski will be just fine. But for this team to become what it can be, those guys are going to have to add to White and Travinski and what Pearson, I think, is going to be. Those are going to have to be some of your stars. They're going to have to be all conference level players. We're not talking about how do you go 15-15 and squeak into the NCAA tournament. How do you win 19 league games? How do you win 18 league games? Those guys are going to have to help, and it's the guys who were freshmen on this past team that are moving into their sophomore year that are going to have to carry a huge portion of the load. Speaking of guys they brought into the transfer portal, they did so in terms of the pitching staff as well, and Jay Johnson talked about that.
All 4 of those guys will blend well with the returning pitchers that we have to form a really, really good pitching staff. I think that if you ask me on paper, I believe that will be the strength of our team in 2024.
I do too. He's talking about Gage Jump. That's a left-hander who has all kinds of potential. As a high-round draft pick and as an SEC starting pitcher. That was a really talented arm that came into UCLA. He's not your 6'6" lefty that Cam Johnson profiles at, but he's 6 feet tall and he throws 93 miles an hour and he's got a really good breaking ball as well. And then you look at Justin Lohr, who they bring in from Xavier, who's left-handed and is crossfire and was a really good bullpen piece that told us on this show that he wanted to potentially have an opportunity to start, but certainly can be relied on as a quality bullpen piece. Jay Johnson had massive praise yesterday for Luke Holman, said he was one of the 10 best pitchers in the league. I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to go there, but he's certainly an SEC starter. And that's a guy that I think you can for sure lean on. And when he says that the pitching is going to be a strength of the team, I'm buying that. With Thatcher Hurd and Nate Ackenhausen, with Jump and Lohr and Holman, when you go to the arms they were able to bring in this class with Cade Anderson and Jake Brown and Cam Johnson, like that's a lot of high-end talent that has come in this class. And while last year we were sitting there going, this lineup is unbelievable, they just got to figure something out in terms of pitching. Now you're looking at it going, this pitching staff is super talented. There's no Skeens, but you've got a lot of arms that have gotten a lot of big outs. I mean, Lohr's gotten huge outs. He eliminated Vanderbilt from their own regional. Holman started game one of a super. And you look at what Ackenhausen and Hurd did. That's pretty salty. Griffin Herring got some pretty big outs. Like, these aren't just guesses based on talent. These guys have pitched in big spots and been very good. So now it's a matter of, okay, well, what does the offense look like? And when you've got a Jay Johnson team and you have the number one recruiting class in the country from last year that's going to be sophomores, and you return one of the best players in the country in Tommy White, and you bring in a couple of transfers that have college experience, you feel like there's a pretty good chance that blends in together into being something pretty good. So it's encouraging. It's exciting. Everybody's still riding that high. I was in a meeting this morning with a client, and I was talking about football with him. And he was like, man, I've even turned the page from baseball. And trust me, if I'm talking to you, the listener now, if you've turned the page from baseball into football, that's okay. I promise it's okay with just like 8-10 days, whatever, 13 days left, whatever it is, until we get to game one with Florida State. All football. I'm with you. That's all good. But there are some people that are still riding that high of what that baseball team did up in Omaha, and we'll certainly be chatting about it when they get out there for some fall practice a little bit later this calendar year. All right, that's our look at baseball briefly. We'll get back to the football side of things. Sharif Ishak from down there at WDSU in New Orleans will be with us talking black and gold next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
LWCC is Louisiana Loyal. They're elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana. You already knew that because we tell you about it each and every day. And by this point, you're very familiar with the champion that we've told you about for most of the summer now. That's Corey Barr. Corey is a nationally renowned chef, but he makes Monroe home. Not New York, San Francisco, not Miami, not New Orleans, but Monroe, because that's home. And he wants to champion his hometown. So he operates his 3 businesses from right there. If you know someone like Corey that's doing great things for our state, could be a nonprofit, could be a business, could be a person like Corey, we want to know about it. Go to lwcc.com/champions and nominate a champion of Louisiana. Do that, they'll get the recognition from LWCC, and we'll tell their story right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Corey Barr is a champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana Loyal.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's Big V and Bubba, 100.7 The Tiger Morning Show. We'd love for you to join us every weekday, 4 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Yeah, everything you want in a show. Country music,
We got laughs. We got celebrity in-studio guests. We just need you.
Join us every weekday morning, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., right where it all started.
That's right. Louisiana's country station, 100.7, The Tiger.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Sandgrove, join us for the Wednesday edition of Live at Lunch from Roca Pizzeria on Government Street. Scott Rabelais is with us. Wes Reynolds from VEASAN and professional handicapper Randy McKay. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Moving right along on this Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, we'll head back out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline. That's where we find our guy, Sharif Ishak from WDSU, talking Saints. Sharif, how are we doing?
I was doing good until I got to episode 2 to Swamp Kings and remembered that LSU lost that 06 game in the Swamp because of 4 hideous turnovers by DeMarcus Russell.
I was a freshman at that game. I rode in the bed of a truck from where we were staying, like 40 miles in and out to Gainesville, and we lost. It was not great.
Nope, fumble at the goal line. I remember everything from that game.
Not super awesome. You were not in L.A., which was not super awesome in terms of weather. What have been the stories from your cohorts down there about hurricane?
Hurricane might have been a little more like bigger than it should have been, probably. Honestly, I think everything turned out to be fine, which doesn't surprise me because everything we're used to most of that here, except for the earthquake. I think the biggest surprise that a $5.5 billion stadium has leaks, which that is probably needs to be fixed from old Cronkite and Company over there. Or is it whoever
they built it? They built it assuming there was no weather. That's the assumption you work on down there in LA.
Yeah, it's an indoor/outdoor stadium. I'm not sure if Kroenke thought it was going to hold up right, and then it had some leaks in it. Had some leaks in their team, the Chargers, not his team, but his stadium. So it is what it is. I mean, it was, I thought it was a really good football game for the Saints.
Yeah,
good, and then of course there's some bad. Not many starters. I mean, Trevor Penning pretty much was the only starter, but for the most part, I saw a lot more good than bad.
What was the biggest positive?
I think the biggest positive is Kendre Miller. You know, he hurt his knee a week before. Here he sprained his knee and would be a couple weeks, and boom, he's back out there for joint practices, back in there in the game. Not just the catch, not the runs. He had a nice blitz pickup, you know, to give Jameis some time. And that's one thing he's been working with Joel Thomas, the running backs coach, on working on his game and elevating his game is, you know, blitz pickup. You saw that in that game. That was one positive. Another positive to me, two more positive. Jalen Smith, the linebacker.
Yep.
I keep telling you that's the way to build a little bit of depth. They need to find someone else or another, you know, two players they can rely on in case there's an injury that happens during the season. Jalen Smith, you know, looked pretty healthy. You know, made a play on two plays on third down, one stopping a guy short of the sticks, and then he made a play in pass defense. And that's something that's encouraging whenever you play in Dennis Allen's defense, Joe Wood's defense, that he could do that. And the defensive line, you know, that defensive line, they did their job. They did their job, especially it's nice to see that Brian Brzee got back there, got a fumble recovery, Peyton Turner creating it. Those are the two guys you hope that, you know, you continue seeing growth from in this preseason. And then Brzee had another knockdown, and Colin Saunders, just watching him chase down, you know, Easton Stick in that goal line situation and forcing a bad throw. You know, that's, you know, those are three very encouraging signs that I saw from that game.
Buying anything in the Peyton Turner stock? I know it's against the second team, but it was a pretty impressive move.
Well, for him, yeah, it's a really good move for him to get to the quarterback and knock the ball out. And for him, whenever he was hurt, I think it's not being able to practice kind of limits your development. So now that he's healthy and practicing this training camp, it feels like he's still playing catch up from the last couple of seasons. And he's having a good camp. We'll be honest, he's having a good camp, and he needs to continue to show those strides before the season kicks off. Can't be a healthy scratch. Your first-round pick from a couple years ago cannot be a healthy scratch like he's been in the previous two seasons. But, you know, he's continuing to show the signs of a guy who's maturing and developing for this defense.
Where are you on Traquan Smith in making this team?
The dreaded question. How many receivers, and will Traquan be one of those receivers?
I mean, I feel like A.T. Perry's in front of him.
It feels like they're, you know, the best ability is availability, and he's not available right now.
Yeah.
You know, now he's behind the eight ball. Will he make the team? If he does he start on IR? How long is that injury, that groin injury, going to keep him out? I mean, they're about to practice here in 30 minutes. We'll see, like, maybe Dennis gives us an update on Traquan Smith. How far out is he? Same with Rashid Shaheed. But if you had to ask me now if they keep him 6, I would think he's probably one of the 6 because of his ability to block. Catching has been suspect, of course. He's dropped some, you know, key passes in his time, but his blocking is what's kept him on this team and playing and being able to sometimes show up on special teams. But I'd assume right now, if they're keeping 6, he's probably one of the 6. But as you said, A.T. Perry, hey, look, man, these games, he's continuing to show that he deserves to be one of the 6. And, you know, Keith Kirkwood is another one of the guys who's showing that he should be one of the 6.
What about Jimmy Graham? I know it's a different position, but same group.
Well, and then there's two different sides of the story with Jimmy Graham.
Start with that, because I opened the show saying I just don't know anything about that. Tell us what you can about the episode.
Well, we only know as much as Dennis is telling us.
Yeah.
You know, it was a medical episode, it's a seizure. Maybe we hear more about it this week, and you know what kind of care he's had, what Dr. Amos has found out, and what's going on exactly. What led him to that episode, that medical episode. You know, that's the key off the field. On the field, are they going to keep 4 tight ends? Is he, like, guaranteed a spot on this team without anything that happened? He's probably fighting for a position on this team. My gut says, man, I know Taysom, they list him as a tight end, but we all know he's the jack of all trades. So, I mean, he does everything. I still think, if everything checks out all right, I still think Jimmy Graham, you can use him in his specialty roles. You can't teach size. How can you say it's hard to teach 6'6" and the guy go get the ball? Do they still see that in him at 36 years old? Part of me says yes. I still think he can make this team and contribute in the red zone.
How do you feel about the offensive line?
Ugh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a spot. That's one of the areas where I'm like, oh man, I'm a little concerned going into the season. I feel good about the 5, sometimes 6 on that offensive line. But after that, I mean, a lot of teams are struggling with the depth along their offensive line after they're 5 or 6. But after that, man, it gets scary. And it's not a good scary. It's a bad scary. It's somebody goes down, which happens every year with the Saints, or 2 go down. You're starting to ask yourself, man, could they hold up for Derek Carr and the running backs? And, you know, show Trevor Penning, I'm glad they played him. I really am glad they played him against the Chargers. I know it was the second team, but at least he got more valuable reps. He got a lot last year. Looked good for all but, 2 of his 15 snaps. He had some pancakes, but he also got beat a couple times, which is, I guess it's going to happen. Not the greatest of things, but it's going to happen. You don't get that many snaps. But it's after those 6 guys who are 7, who's going to be 8, in case, 2 guys go down. And then that worries me. That worries me a lot because you could have Derek scrambling, or you could not have good pass protection. You're not going to have that great run blocking if your guys aren't healthy. And the guys behind those 2 or behind those, 5 or 6, it could be bad. I mean, that is worrisome for sure.
I heard Charles Handegriff ask Chris Rodvoglu this earlier, and I thought it was a reasonable question, or an interesting thought at least. Have you seen enough from Groupie to dangle Will Lutz in front of Sean Payton up there in Denver and say, hey, what can you give us for Lutz? We've got a kid that we think can do this. Can you give us a pick or 2?
Well, both guys have been kicking the ball and kicking it really well during camp and these games.
Can't use 2 kickers.
I just don't know, man. Sean is like revolving kicker guy.
I know.
He will cut a kicker after missing 1 kick. That's just been his thing with the Saints. He'd cut a guy. Maher's struggling in Denver. He's going to need a kicker. And if it isn't Lutz, maybe he goes and gets Blake Groupie when they let him go. But to me, I'm still sticking with Will Lutz. I'd rather, the guy who's been there, done that. He's got a little bit of a stronger leg. He's been showing a 60-plus in practice and in pregame. Those are, the kicks that the Saints are going to need. Groupie is right around the, 57, 58 yards. I mean, I don't know how many times you're going to count on your kicker to kick 60-plus, but you never know. If you need, some points at the end of the half or against the Vikings last year in that game where he would have made it if he didn't doink it, double doink it, he'd got some leg on it. But to me, I think it's Will Lutz's job to lose still. But it's been a good battle. Groupie is a good kicker, and I think he's going to be on a roster as someone, someone would be foolish not to take him if the Saints don't keep him.
What can the Saints accomplish here this week as they enter the Texans game?
A little bit more of the position battles. Look at, Alontae Taylor, Paulson, and Debo getting a little bit more run like they did last week. They still are trying to figure out who is going to be that second cornerback opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. I want to see more from the offensive line. That offensive line, those like you talked about a minute ago, a couple of those guys are going to have to really flash and show, they can play and they can be counted on when the season starts. Just a couple of guys go down. Continue progress from Isaiah Foskey. And there was one play that, Dennis Allen got into him for not making, play in that red zone, missing the tackle. You invested a second-round pick in him. Yeah, he's, continuing to improve, but, hey, he's got to, continue to show something in the game. And I'd like to see a little bit more from the linebackers and receivers. I feel like I'm naming everyone, but it's fun to watch the receivers, man. You're seeing Shaq Davis make plays. You see John Trey Kirkland make plays. These guys are fighting to be on this roster, whether it's special teams or you're the number 6 receiver. It's fun to watch that. So I know people don't like the third preseason game, but it's fun to watch because, guys are on the bubble fighting for their roster spots and, trying to make this team. So that's an enjoyable part of the third preseason game, watching the guys who are trying to make that 53-man roster. And the Saints got some spots there open.
So what's the indication on what you'll see in terms of participation? They sat all the starters after some tough joint practices, none of those this week, and we haven't seen Dennis Allen coach 3 preseason games because they lost one last year.
That's the interesting part with the joint practices getting canceled this week with the Texans. Does Dennis Allen, give them a series or 2? Does he go with the starters now because they don't get that joint practice work? If they don't play them a series or 2, they're going to go a month in between any action in the game. And you wonder, is that enough? Is that one series enough against the Chiefs? And you look at the other side of it, you don't want to get anybody hurt. You'd hate to start the season with any kind of injuries. I guess we're going to hear from Dennis at 4:30 if what his plan is. And he may not say today. He may say it later in the week if he plans on playing some of the starters. But part of me wouldn't be shocked if they didn't see the field again and they just continue rolling like they did with the last game plan for the game against the Chargers and seeing who they can find that can make this roster in certain positions.
We'll talk next week, Sharif. Thanks.
All right, anytime, Hunt.
Sharif Ishak, WDSU down in New Orleans. One more timeout. When we come back, take it or leave it, and we're done for the day. Hunt Palmer Show.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Officially, it's a fridge full of beer. Unofficially, it's free AC. Coors Light, the official beer of everything unofficial.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, powered by Sunshine, your John Deere dealer in Louisiana. Saints are back on the practice field. We'll get you an update on the Who Dats, and we'll continue our SEC check-ins. Mississippi State is up next. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Moving right along on this Tuesday, Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Jacob Beck, let's play some Take It or Leave It.
All right, first one here. The Bucs are going with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. Caleb Williams will be their QB this time next year. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. There's some other teams, but that's a tough way to start. It's not that Kyle Trask looks like some MVP performer, but those two in that roster is just going to be a total mess. So there's a good chance they could be the worst team in the league, but the bottom usually falls out on a couple of teams, and so I won't perfectly single them out. There are probably some other teams that could really not be so good this year. So I have no doubt that there are people in the Bucs organization that are already looking at Caleb Williams. Like, that seems realistic because they're probably not going anywhere, but they don't play that difficult a schedule because they're in the NFC South. So, you rattle off 4 wins, you might have played yourself out of it. We'll see. But it'll be interesting to see who falls into that because he looks like a pretty good prospect.
The University of Hawaii at Manoa has to fly 6 hours over the ocean for every single game for 19 different men's and women's sports. The teams average 2,900 miles per road trip, or I guess flight. More than 50,000 miles in a season. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. That sucks. Like, it's probably awesome going to school at Hawaii Manoa because it's probably in a really pretty place that has a lot of really fun things to do and great culture. But man, hopping on the flight, 5-7 times for volleyball matches or for softball games or for golf tournaments or whatever the case may be, basketball and baseball games, like, that's just... I've only done the transatlantic flight once. I've only gone to Europe one time, and I'm not going to go very many times in my life. I was under the impression that if you had a really long flight, they gave you some special plane that had a lot more leg room and more amenities. No, looked just like I was flying from New Orleans to New York, which I've done a couple times. Instead, you're just going all the way, and you don't have any leg room, and it's not that comfy, and you can't sleep, and doing that 4 times a month sounds awful. I as good as going to school there sounds, that travel plan just sounds no good. And I'm not even that bad at travel. I don't mind flying, New Orleans to Chicago. I don't mind flying to having my flights coming home from Omaha weren't even that bad. I did Omaha to LaGuardia to DC to New Orleans, and it was 2 hours, an hour 10, and back, and that wasn't that bad. That long flight where you just don't hit the ground again and can't no, I'm out on that. Pass.
Will Levis got a lifetime contract with Hellman's Mayonnaise because he puts it in his coffee. Mayo in your morning coffee. Take it or leave it.
Interesting fact. I have never had a cup of coffee without mayonnaise in it. So,
Wait, what? Are you serious?
I've never had a cup of coffee. I've never had a cup of coffee in my 35 years. I've never had a glass of wine. I've tasted both, and I think they both taste disgusting. And I don't find myself grossly out of energy in the morning or in the afternoon. I do the show 1 to 3, and I go back and take care of some things in the kind of the workday generally, or if I have a meeting, I just don't need a coffee. I don't. It's just not something that's part of my routine. I know a lot of people got into coffee when they had kids because they had to stay up. We did a good job of trading off. We had a great sleeper, and I kind of slept. Now, that may change with number 2 whenever that happens, but I don't care. So I don't. You can tell that I've taken mayonnaise in every cup of coffee I've ever had because I'm over.
All right, last one here. Swamp Kings is going to be the next untold Netflix documentary for Florida football. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it. I might watch it. I'm not going to make plans to watch it. I was definitely going to watch Johnny, and I was definitely, in the last, 3 months, I was definitely going to go see Oppenheimer. Those were 2 things that I was going to make time to do. I've read some people on Twitter say that this Florida Swamp Kings is a coronation of the program and a propaganda piece for the program. I was under the impression it was more so about the malcontents on that team, Chris Rainey texting his girlfriend, "Time to die, I'm gonna kill you," and getting arrested, and all the guys that ran afoul and the DWIs and all. I was under the impression that that's what it was more so about. If you're just going to tell me how awesome Florida was at football during that time, I was in school during that time.
You already know because you were there.
I was there in Gainesville in 06. I was there in Tiger Stadium in 07. I was there in Gainesville in 08. I was in Tiger Stadium in 09. I was in Gainesville in 2010. Like, I watched it all. Brandon Spikes intercepted a pass from Jarrett Lee and ran it back for a touchdown and punted it over my head in the end zone. Like, I was plenty there for Tebow running wind sprints and getting the student section all jacked up. And I had Tim Tebow's phone number and called him and left a voicemail when we got on the whole phone number. Like, I was there for the whole thing. It was terrifying how good they were. If you were going to tell me a portion of the story that I don't know that much about, with all the disciplinary issues and fracturing in the program that led to Urban finally having health issues and leaving, well, I would like that. It's like, I watched Johnny play. I think that's great. Tell me about the autograph signings. That's why I want to watch that doc. If you're not going to give me a bunch of the off-the-field stuff and you're just going to tell me that Tebow was good, I'm probably going to pass on that. So maybe I'll let some more people watch and kind of give their thoughts before I dive in. I'm not ruling it out, but it's one of those deals where I like to learn something when I watch a doc, and it doesn't seem like I would learn much from that. So I'll leave it for the time being. That's it for our Tuesday show here on the Hunt Palmer Show. Open things up with my thoughts on the Saints 53-man roster. Talk with Jason Caldwell, who's with Auburn 247. I talked about the Auburn Tigers and Hugh Freeze's first year. Glenn West of Go 24/7 was with us in the first hour as well. Nick Delatorre covers Florida for On 3. He was with us at 2 o'clock. We heard some Jay Johnson sound as well. And Sharif Ishak from WDSU on the Saints. If you missed any of it, catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or, of course, on YouTube. Matt Moscona is going to drive you home on After Further Ado coming up next. Hope to see you at Pluckers tonight. If not, same time, same place, right here on the Hunt Palmer Show.